Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Tomlinson, and I'm the IT manager for the Idaho Department of Correction. I'm so pleased to welcome you all here today to the presentation for Offender Communication. Connecting offenders with their friends and families through technology is now more important than ever. We're looking forward to a discussion that covers not only some of the available options like portable kiosks and mobile supervision, but also the why behind those technologies and how they're working to create continuity and connection for clients, employees, and stakeholders. With me here today, I have Michael Hirschman, founder of TrackTech LLC. Michael founded TrackTech, bringing his broad experience and a new innovative concept into the criminal justice community corrections industry. He leveraged technology not only for the offender compliance monitoring, but to assist people on probation and parole to get the resources they needed to be successful. Also with me is Adam Henderson, Vice President of Sales, APDS. Adam brings over 20 years of experience in corrections and education. As Vice President of Sales, he works with state and county facilities to provide education and programming in secure facilities by leveraging technology. He has a deep knowledge in educational standards and the use of technology for learning and rehabilitation in both correctional and post-release settings. A big welcome to both of you. Michael, let's jump right in.
Thank you, Michelle. Hello, everybody. We really appreciate you attending this event virtually. I wish I were there, live so that I could make sure that y'all had donuts and coffee in hand and are awake after lunch. So we'll do the best we can virtually, but what a great setup the CTA's put together, and I hope that you get a lot out of this. There is a mechanism for you to ask questions, and we really want you to engage in this. So please don't just turn this session on and go watch TV or something. We want you to be here, ask lots of questions, and put us to the test. So what we want to get into is kind of the understanding about communications. And in our sessions ahead of this actual seminar, we talked about the term offender. So I want to bring that up right now. You're going to hear a couple different terms. Michelle, myself, and Adam all recognize that the industry is kind of struggling right now to find maybe a common term. People have typically used offender, inmate, client, justice-involved individual. There's a lot of different terms. So you're going to hear some different things today. And so on this one, improving the client access, accountability, and compliance. So there are different things that are really important in our mind. And we also have to look at the fact that you've got an incarcerated population and you have a community supervised population. And so I come primarily from the community supervision side, and Adam's going to be speaking more to the incarcerated side. However, there's a lot of crossover in that. And so having the ability when somebody's out in the community to have automated check-ins and reminding them of important things such as maybe a court hearing or to go get a UA or to see their therapist, different things like that are really important. And leveraging technology, you can provide that communication back and forth with whom we call the program member or the client. And there's also a lot of access to the information. So we leverage, you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, well, how do you do this? We leverage smartphones, and there's smartphones as in a totally controlled device. And there's also smartphone apps, the app that can be put onto the program member's own phone. And then you can push out all kinds of information that is specifically driven to help them succeed. And then, you see diverse communication tools. There's a lot of ability here, whether it be text messaging, email, system messages, video teleconferencing, things of that nature, so that you can communicate back and forth with a person that works best for them. Positive reinforcement is huge. The industry right now is going to this 4-to-1 positive versus negative. We've really only ever focused on the negative because that's what we know about. And it's important to help a person be successful with positive affirmations. And there's a lot of ability to ensure compliance of somebody who's in the system as well. And then because technology is so powerful, you have a lot of ways to report on what's going on and be able to kind of see trends. What do we got on the next slide, Michelle? So we kind of took a scenario approach on this, and improving access and availability of the programs and services for somebody under community supervision is really kind of important, because when you think about somebody who has been incarcerated and then all of a sudden comes back into the community and they're like, what do I do now? You know, they tend to go back to what they have always known, which is a lot of times what got them in trouble in the first place. So we really need to be able to help people when they go back into the community have the access and availability to support and accountability. Could be a substance abuse program, AA that's in the area, the ability to reach out for sponsors. The telehealth and healthcare is huge. A lot of times people don't really have the funding or the knowledge to have a doctor. You know, they have always used maybe a public health system or something of that nature. And so using technology with a smartphone app, you can push out like a teledoc system and have access to the resources that really are important to somebody. And it's not just physical, right? You know, mental health is really a big deal, always has been. It's just that we kind of ebb and flow in how we view it, whether it's got stigma to it or not. But it's true. People have mental health issues and we need to support that. And some people, I mentioned the finances, they just do not have the ability to have a home and they find themselves living on the street someplace. So the use of technology can help them to find homeless shelter, maybe even one that is specific to them if they've got a dog or they're a male or a female or they're with children. So technology allows to sort those things out. We leverage an addiction program called Breaking Free. It's cognitive behavioral therapy approach that really gets into helping our program member find the ability to see through the struggles in life and find peace and joy. And that kind of goes for a lot of the life skills that are available, because when you know that you're a good person and that you've got some purpose in life, it just makes getting through life a whole lot easier. And that's really what we seek to do is, you know, remove the stigma of somebody who's been in the criminal justice system and let them know that, hey, you are a person and you can be a great productive member of society. And, you know, a lot of that comes from having a job. And when we can help people to be employed and work and actually take care of themselves, there's a lot of power behind that. Michelle, I get to gabbing, so you're going to have to keep me going on time here too.
You're all good.
Next slide. So in this scenario, we're going to look at improving workflows using technology and how that can significantly reduce the amount of time spent managing tasks and how you engage with the clients, right? There's average probably 50 to 100 people on a caseload for somebody on community supervision. That's huge. And we hear of agencies, no kidding, have 600 and 700 people on a caseload. So how do you manage all of that? Well, by using technology, first and foremost, you can automate a lot of the workflows that you have to do. You can set up and customize those workflows to what is important to you. And we can start to prioritize what's really important. And by leveraging the different types of communication that you have with your program member, you can actually get much more success because you're communicating the right message, right? A lot of times you don't get the message or you can't put the message out correctly and people are confused. And confusion is usually what causes a lot of the technical violations and ends up with people going back to jail or getting in trouble. And then there's just a lot of frustration around all of it. So the ability to share this digital information between the agency, between other agencies, between the support mechanisms and that program member are hugely beneficial. You can also provide the wraparound services that we know are so critical to the success of somebody who is in community supervision. Because when they're out in the community, they need to know that they've got support and we have to help show them where that support is. A lot of that might be them having to fill out a form to get access to some kind of service. And when we can securely collect a document with a form and have them sign it and everything is secure and private, there's a lot of power behind that. So when you can have somebody out in the community do all of the work that they normally would have to do by coming to your office, it reduces the amount of time that you have to spend, and it reduces the amount of time that they have to spend, which ultimately makes everybody a little bit more happy. And they're a little less anxious about having to come and see you. Next slide. So why communication? Well, the whole thing again is when you can communicate with somebody, message sent, message received, you now know, and it becomes a decision for them. If I didn't show up for court because I didn't know about it, well, it's still my fault. It's my responsibility to, have that, but it's a burden on you and it's a burden on the system. So when we can send something out as simple as a reminder that, hey, you have a hearing on, June 9th at 1400, that can help to increase the likelihood that they're going to show up, which ultimately just kind of greases the sled for success all the way through the system. Next slide. So with calendaring reducing the technical violations by 15%, you can see where ultimately you're reducing recidivism in a grander scale. Again, I mentioned the 4-to-1, positive to negative. We want to try and stay in touch with our program member so that they are a part of their success. And it ultimately reduces our workload, and every little mechanism that we can automate for you, the best. Next slide. Adam, you're up, buddy.
You're a hard act to follow. Thank you. So welcome, everyone. Glad to be here. Michelle, you can jump to the next one. So APDS, we are American Prison Data Systems. So we are a certified B Corporation, which means everything that we do is tied back to our social mission of ending the revolving door of corrections through education, rehabilitation, workforce development, and job skills. We are going to talk about a subset of what we do. Michelle, you can jump to the next one. A subset of what we do is actually communication between resident and staff and resident. One of the things that the last 16 months has really spotlighted is the need for a varied way of communication through technology. We've seen that simple messaging through our Connected Corrections platform from residents to staff, whether it be educational, clinical, or just reaching out as wellness checks. We have seen thousands of messages through the platform to where they've been able to communicate and still do continuity of programming, be able to provide care in 23-in-1 type lockdown situations. And another piece that we've seen really grow is the use of electronic forms, to where you can take any piece of paper form within a facility and replicate it in a digital fashion. So the resident is able to fill out the form that becomes electronically delivered to whomever it needs to be. And all of this becomes trackable information. Corrections is really starting to get into the data and being able to understand what certain things mean. And this becomes another data point. If Michael fills out a form and it comes to me and I don't react on it and Michael files a grievance, you now have the trackable information as to why I didn't act on the information. Michael mentioned video engagement. This is also another piece based on that we saw a huge demand for, is the ability to provide not only telehealth, but just general clinical mental health check-ins from remote locations. So if you were not able to actually be on site, you're still able to connect in, check in with your patients and residents of a facility. Michelle, you can jump to the next one. So talking about, staff and resident type communications, there's still the requirement to allow detainees to have access and communication with attorneys. Even though, in a pandemic, institutions are locked down, not letting outsiders in, there still needs to be a way for detainees to be able to communicate with their attorneys. So there's, APDS worked with a couple of jurisdictions to provide privileged two-way communication, meaning the detainee and the attorney could communicate through messages to each other. However, the jurisdiction could not see the content of those messages, nor could we. You're only able to see the traffic. Traffic being Michelle sent me, the attorney, 15 messages, and me, the attorney, sent 12 back to Michelle. So you're able to see the traffic, but not the content, which is extremely important for privileged communications. And then, sometimes things can't be conveyed in text. So having privileged video meetings is also an important piece. And again, this is, making sure that the bumpers are there so you can't, jurisdictions can't see the privileged information that's being exchanged between the attorney and the client. And then, in non-reporting features and, all these types of things that need to be put in place for privileged attorney-client communication. It's an important piece. One other thing is using the digital libraries of legal libraries, and then using, allowing the detainees to do their own research, which then they can communicate to their attorney. And then they could also use the form within the platform to request paper copies of an actual case to do their further research. So there's a number of different tools to allow that relationship to foster. Can we jump to the next one? And we all know the benefit to having communication with friends and family and how that works on their mental health. So we had APDS, again, as I mentioned, we're a certified B Corporation. So everything that we do is at no charge to the offender or the resident detainee, whichever terminology you want to use. So we have APDS Thrive. So this is therapeutic interactive video engagement. This is earned video engagement. So this is, think of your children. Do the work, you get the allowance. So this is do the work and you get the reward. You're able to, on the therapeutic or on the Thrive side of this, you are able to engage with friends and family while you're still incarcerated. Security staff is able to monitor all of this, and then there's also recorded. So live monitoring, you're able to actually shut things down if something goes sideways immediately. So, but again, it's the therapeutic piece of being able to have communication with friends and family, and the mental health well-being of the video engagement. Next slide. Oh, there you go. So open for questions. Any comments? Happy to discuss a little further.
Yes, absolutely. I'll start off while people are filling out that Q&A box at the bottom of the screen.
Well, and Michelle, I hate to jump in here, but you're a professional in this industry, and I wonder if you have anything to add rather than just jumping right into questions.
I feel like it's important to just mention the sheer volume of communications we had to take on last year. And maybe you guys could speak to how technology helped manage some of that. But here in Idaho, some of the new sanitation procedures, new IRS forms, 4 different versions, new parole hearing meeting options, new court case hearing options. How do you handle your PPE and what's the proper procedure there? New partnerships. There's so many things came at us last year. So you guys want to jump in on how tech helped with that?
Well, one piece that that I was really excited about last year was we had a client that all of their pre-adjudicated detainees were still allowed to vote. And if you were convicted of a misdemeanor, you were still allowed to vote. So how do you do voter registration in a jail or a prison? So we were able to connect with their voter registration process, and through our tablets and platform registered, a couple of hundred people to vote in this past election. And I mean, they had candidates, do Zoom debates for them specifically. They had, it was really interesting to watch everyone get engaged and actually being able to leverage the technology to register the voters.
That's amazing. Michael, anything you want to add?
Well, I think that Adam's answer is probably the best one, because with the incarcerated side, he's going to have the tech that's in there. The one thing that I can throw out is the beautiful connection between an organization like TrackTech and APDS, where they're on the inside with kind of a captive audience, if you will, helping to provide insight, resources, training, education, and then it can be continued once a person is out of incarceration, because you don't want to just leave them there, empty-handed with no tech. So it's almost the ability to continue on with the tech. And it is a very quick and fast way to get messages out. For us, messaging might be more like Louisiana, where the hurricanes are hitting and offices are going to be closed, and people are expecting to go and see their probation officer, but it's like, what do I do now? So the technology really does provide for not only the ability to get the message out, but to understand who got the message, when they got the message, and if there was any kind of feedback that needed to come with that.
So there's been a lot of change in the last year. Do you feel like technology has helped reduce the fear in both the resident and supervised communities?
Adam?
Reduced fear, is that was the question?
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I heard you right. So there is, the clients that we work with, the jurisdictions, again, being able to have the communication tools to provide, information around COVID-19, because, there for a while, the news was pretty doom and gloom. And then, being able to provide realistic information. Then as vaccines became available, being able to answer questions. I saw a couple of places that actually created courses and a learning management system for all of their residents to be able to learn and understand both about COVID-19, the PPE process, the sanitation processes, and then adding in the different vaccines and what the differences were and all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of information and communication around that.
Awesome. All right, I have a couple of questions from our audience.
Sure.
First one's from Amanda. Have you found that earned video visitation has decreased incidents in the correctional centers, or found an increase in compliance or overall compliance? Or found an increase in compliance or overall satisfaction of the inmates?
So when the facilities that we have Thrive launched in, it's a relatively new program for us, but we've seen huge changes in the population. You see the population really committed to doing whatever the work needs to be done in order to earn those types of video interactions. We've seen so incidents have dropped dramatically, and we've seen incidents drop dramatically just by providing tablets to the residents. That gives them, idle hands is the devil's work. So by having, different, a vast amount of programming within a digital tool allows it allows students to learn and people to work on mental health and different things. But our video engagement has been a huge success in the pilot sites that we have it launched in.
I have a question from Mia up next. I'm interested in the security implications of communication between people in prison and their family and friends in the community, email and video calls. How common is misuse, communicating for criminal purposes or contacting victims, and how do you prevent it?
So on the Thrive, the therapeutic interactive video engagement, that is monitored by security staff. So that is live monitored. So essentially what it would be is Michelle and I having a conversation, and because it's one-to-one. So Michelle and I would be having a conversation. We would not know that Michael is in the background watching us. But if me as a resident of a jail or a prison, or even as Michelle on the outside, started talking about criminal activity or inappropriate activities happening on a video call, Michael would be able to shut that down immediately. We've not seen any of that because the importance of being able to see and communicate visually with friends and family, also audibly, if that's a word, being able to have that interaction really helps a lot of people with mental health. So on the email side of things, we only provide email messaging access to really attorneys, which is privileged. So we have no idea what types of conversations are happening there. And that's by design. And then, but to staff and resident, all of those messages are actually stored and can be reviewed. So any facility administrator can actually go in and see me as a staff member, how I'm communicating with the residents, if there's a complaint or if there's any type of investigation needs to happen. Those types of messages are all available for review, but the attorney-client messages are hidden for a purpose. So, but we've not seen any issues with that. So,
and I know here in Idaho we use other technologies outside of APDS and TrackTech, and our scenarios are very similar. We have someone monitoring the video visitations that can cut it off immediately. And we do have emails that are available to and from families and residents, but they are reviewed and monitored as well. So similar here. Okay. Next question. So it's from someone in CTA. Okay. In the jurisdictions that you service, have the communications you provide ever been subject to freedom of information requests? And if not, how would you be able to meet such a request?
I'm assuming that's going to be more for me. So no, we've not had the freedom of information requests. However, if the request was made, we'd be able to, again, all of the staff resident type communication is available. And they'll be able to pull that information and download it and send it as needed. Again, attorney-client is all privileged, so that is not available. We would be able to show traffic, but not content.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
One more from Srinivasa. Tablets to the residents, do they connect on DC network or separate inmate networks?
So, so we actually operate two different ways. So if you're looking at a Wi-Fi deployment, it's generally a separate network run specifically for inmates, and that is heavily secure. So all of our tablet traffic
It's 14 hours.
routes back to our servers only. We have like 20 some million hours of usage without a security breach. So if there's not a Wi-Fi network installed, we can work with you to install one, and or we can use our proprietary VPN cellular network to provide access to the content and different things. So there's couple of different options there. But generally, it does not run on a same staff network.
Similar here in Idaho as well. Yeah.
Right.
Michael, what benefits do you think the stakeholders really take away from these new technologies and processes?
Well, I think there's several, and I think again it depends on whether you're talking about an incarcerated population or a community population. Adam can probably speak more on the incarcerated side, but in general, the technology provides kind of that checks and balances, and it helps us all be better. When you have logs that you can go back and look at, you have truth that you can fall back on. Whenever you can expedite a manual process by automating it, there's operational benefits, which typically reduce stress on staff as well as cost. So technology is hugely beneficial for that. There's also a lot of things. Technology can be bad too, right? Anything has both a good and a bad. I use the example of a hammer all the time. It's a tool, and I can use that tool to build a church, or I can use it to knock the windows out of a church. So how we use technology is really important, and I think that that's where vendors and the agencies coming together to understand the use cases, what needs to be solved, what success looks like, and kind of providing the end state right at the very beginning, so you know what you're trying to accomplish, is hugely important. But there's a lot of benefits in cost, a lot of benefits for several stakeholders, right? You have the program member or the justice involved individual, you've got the agency, you've got the agents who work for the agencies, you've got the public. And when technology can provide benefit to all, that's what's really cool.
Absolutely. Okay, this one's for both of you. What's on the horizon technologically?
Where's my crystal ball? We are really focused in on trying to make sure that we're providing the programming and the tools for individuals while they are in state county care to be successful when the handoff happens to someone like Michael's company. I'm a firm believer that we all go down through the path of life. Some of us go left, some of us go right. Those that go left may end up incarcerated. There's a whole host of reasons as to why that happens. This isn't the place to debate that, but there's a host of reasons that happen or that cause someone to be justice involved. What can we do to help them? Is it make sure that they have at least a high school diploma? Let's make sure that we work on their mental health. Let's make sure that they can find a job. All of that is going to be done through technology. And it's happening fast. I mean, I've seen jurisdictions that there's absolutely no way that we would ever allow an inmate or an offender to have access to anything that even remotely touches the internet. And that conversation changed within 6 months. Like, we need something to make sure that we're keeping up. So I think you're going to see a lot of different opportunities happen and I think it's going to happen fast. In, and one thing I want to make sure that everybody understands is technology should not be designed to replace people. It should be designed to work in conjunction with people. So if you're looking at education, how can one educator reach a wider audience? That can be done through technology. And how can that same programming be delivered in a pandemic? It's through video engagement. So a video classroom. So Michelle can be sitting in her office where she is and reach out across the state to all of her students and be able to teach the same course at the same time. So those are the types of things that I see that are going to be very impactful and that are going to happen fast. And I think you're going to see more and more companies like myself and like Michael's develop those tools to make sure that staff can reach the wider audience that they need to and be able to have that meaningful engagement in whether it's pre-release or post-release. That's my crystal ball.
All right, Michael, how
Well,
about you?
I gotta say, I love how he ended that because it's how I was going to begin mine. Companies like APDS and Track Tech. I think, ultimately, Michelle, the answer here is technology is going to be a light. And what I mean by that is it's going to shine on the problem. It's going to make things very obvious. It's like, you walk into the kitchen at night and the light is off. You're just walking in the kitchen, right? You don't know you got a problem until you turn the light on and then you see the cockroaches. You may have suspected, but as long as you don't turn the light on, you can deny it, right? Ignorance is bliss. And I think what technology is going to do is it's going to be the mechanism by which we find truth. And, Adam already mentioned APDS is a B corporation. We've actually looked at filing for that as well. Track Tech, for us, the word track has duality, right? Everybody in the corrections industry says, oh, you're going to track somebody. Yeah, we do that too. But we want to put people on the right track. And so for us, on our logo, that Tower Road, the horizontal line is that radio signal that's like for tracking, and the vertical line is for, putting somebody on the right track. It's the middle of the road. And it forms a T. And for me, that's truth. And I think that that's what we all seek. Michelle, when I can come to you as an agency and I can provide you truth, I can provide you data, now you can do something with it. You get to choose. And I think we're at a place in our society where we have to choose. And I think the vendors have been in the market to make money. We're businesses, we have to make money. But there is a shift going on right now where people recognize that the people in the criminal justice system are people. We have to help them be successful. We have to help them find out who they are and why they committed the crime in the first place. And recidivism rates are stupid high. I mean, if you're looking at how many people go back in the system, we're not correcting anything. So let's try something new. Let's use technology to find where we can help people and deploy the right tools so that they can be successful. So what's on the horizon? Truth. And I think that technology is going to help people to find that. And it's going to, what do they say? The high tide raises all ships.
Yep. All right, great. Thank you. I think one more point from the Idaho perspective maybe is that we're really trying to use technology to make the connections. If I can set up a connection between myself and my teacher, I'm going to learn a whole lot better. If I actually make a human connection using video chat or whatever mechanisms available, if I can make the connection between myself and my case manager, myself and my parole officer, I'm a lot more invested in finding my why for not committing more crimes. And we've also set up something called connection intervention stations throughout the state, so that if you're in crisis, you can go talk to somebody right away. And they're not they are set up as part of our agency. They're staffed by by vendors, but it's in full partnership. Again, trying to make sure that we're there so that people can make the connections that are going to help them stay on track. So there you go. I do not see any additional questions. So
let's see if we can drum some up. Okay, we need one more question. Somebody, you've got one there. Just go ahead and type it in real quick.
Make
it for Adam.
Yeah, there you go. Let me state one more thing about technology. I was on site at a rather large jail recently, and talking to their staff and a handful of residents. One thing that, when we, as non-incarcerated people, technology is an everyday thing. We have multiple smartphones, we have tablets, we have laptops, we have probably 50 or 60 smart devices of some sort in our house. But to hear from somebody that just went through the last 14 to 16 months of a pandemic, locked in a cell for 22 or 23 hours a day, and when you hear them say technology saved my life, having some type of connected device, so they can work on different aspects and be able to keep their mind busy in those types of situations, that is extremely advantageous of a technology piece in a correctional setting. And by having that, where the offender doesn't have to continuous pay more and more in order to access, there's certain pieces that, should be fundamental for everybody to have access to be able to keep their minds active, no matter the situation. And I think having a worldwide pandemic is going to, we were talking about where's technology going. I think that's going to spur a lot of conversations, because I think a lot of places were not prepared. So we'll see how that's the second part of my crystal ball. So we'll see how all that plays out too. But to hear from individuals where technology saved their life is a pretty powerful statement.
Absolutely, that's a great point. If you want to bring your crystal balls out or your wish list again, we never saw ourselves as an agency connecting with the CDC or the state epidemiologists, or probably even that voting agency. So who else would you like to bring into your realm? Who else do you want to bring in as a partner?
Us?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was open to everybody or how.
It's open to both of you, but.
Yeah. I think the more stakeholders are involved to provide information is important. When you look at, you hear about different places that have like this patchwork of information. So, all right, so we connected with this agency, so you need to go see Miss Thompson to get your ID. Okay, well, how about there's a more direct piece that can be done in hand? My perfect vision would be is key stakeholders within the state actually have a small satellite office in a reentry center. You go down office to office to office to office and get all of your information, and then you walk out, not necessarily with a packet, but maybe it's a thumb drive or access to a Google Drive to have all your information. That is an ideal place in my mind. Is all the stakeholders should be easily accessible to a returning citizen.
Terrific. Michael, can I add to that?
So effectively what our solution does is allows all of that to be in the hands of the program member. where they can communicate directly with whoever they need. And then for us, we have what we call track case, which is that single pane of glass that the officer, the case manager, the therapist, the coach, the whoever needs to access it, all secured, and they only see that portion which is important to them. But what's really cool is when you have a program member who is, say, doing coaching, and the coach can go in and communicate, and the officer has the ability to see the progress of the program member through that coaching experience. And then, you know, assessment is huge, right? We need to, unfortunately, we've all had to take tests in school. Why? Because the teacher needs to know, am I doing a good job? Are you actually learning the material I'm giving you? We need to be doing the same thing in the criminal justice system, where we're testing ourselves and we're testing our program member to make sure that they are moving in the right direction. And if they're not, why not? And what areas are they benefiting and which areas are they not? Again, technology shining the light on the truth. So, you know, the communication is huge, having all the stakeholders, making sure that we understand who the stakeholders are, and making sure that the stakeholders understand their role and their responsibility in the overall success of a program.
Got it. Thank you. Back to something Adam was talking about, I realized Idaho has some more partner agencies that we brought in during the pandemic. And so we have that capability of sending the residents out with their ID in hand. So we've partnered with the transportation department so that you can get your state ID or your driver's license before you leave the facilities. And we're also currently in partnership with the Department of Labor, so that we're working to set up a reentry website that's available inside the facilities, whitelisted for our own tablets, so that they can get to it and see what jobs are available, what additional, and what the linkages are between our education and programming options are in-house to what the labor options are out in the community. So we're excited about that as well.
I'd love to comment on that, because I think what you're speaking about there is also addressing something that Adam brought up. And I think we're in a place where in the past, the culture has been, we'll never let an inmate have access to the internet. We'll never do this. We'll never do that. There has become, you know, and I guess the criminal justice reform, right? But there's a cultural shift. And I think what you're speaking to is so important, and our listeners today probably need to go back to their agencies and say, where are we shifting? Where are we not shifting? And what's the why behind it? So that each of the agencies within the CTA can recognize that, you know what, maybe we should look at bringing in the Department of Labor. Maybe we should look at bringing in an employment organization, you know, whatever it might be, but looking at the things that we've not looked at before, because we've not viewed the person who's justice involved as a person. We've looked at them as an offender.
Yes, absolutely. 98% of ours are going to be out in your neighborhood at one point in time. So yeah, we need to help them be stable and adjusted. So I do not have any more questions. So I want to thank you both so much for working on your presentation today. You did a great job, and thank you for all of our attendees and the questions they sent in, and appreciate you all. So thank you.
Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We'll leave this here for just a second before I turn it off. Contact info for both of them. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.